Whoa, okay. I will try my best not to. Hold on. Can you guys hear me if I speak like this?
Yeah.
Is this better? A bit better, right? Okay. So I'll try to project my voice to everybody. You know, I try not to use the mic because the mic sounds a bit busted. So yeah. But anyways, welcome to the Web Development Basics Workshop. It's hosted by me, Ray Young. I'm a Dunman High School's Year 6 student. Yeah, whatever. They asked for my mark shot, so I gave them a mark shot. Then I realized it wasn't going to be used anyway, so whatever. Yeah. So in this workshop, we'll first be taking a look at what makes a website, right? And then after that, we'll take a look, explore a bit more into the core components, right? The basic core components being HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And then afterwards, we'll be talking a bit more about interacting with the web. And if we have time, we'll round it out with a final conclusion project, I hope. Can I just check? The people at the sides can see, right? Or is this thing blocking? Cannot hear. Okay. Can. They say mic sounds worse, so.
Yeah, it's a table mic.
The table mic is.
I think it sounds better.
You sure or not?
I don't know if you.
Okay lah. Okay. Hello. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Are you sure this sounds better?
That's alright.
Guys, can I have a poll? I don't think it sounds better. I think you're capping, bro. Okay, I will try my best not to shout into the mic. Okay, but yeah, so we'll need your cooperation to also maybe quieten down a bit so I don't need to shout so much. Okay, yeah. So as I was saying, right, this is what we'll try to do today, right? I'm not sure if we have enough time to finish up this last part, but we'll try that. We'll play by ear. Yeah. Right. So first of all, what is a website, right? Before we start, we have a few prerequisite things I need you all to do. First of all, I need you all to go to codecollab.io in your browser. If you can use Chrome or Firefox or Edge, that'll be better. Try not to use Safari unless you're on an iPad because, it's a bit. Web development on Safari is a bit of a weird edge case. Create an account with your academic email address. If you have a school email address, like a students.edu.sg email, or your school provides you with, I don't know, in the case of my school, dhs.sg, vjc.sg, or whatever else, use your academic email address to create an account. Reason being, only academic email addresses can create HTML, CSS, and JS projects. Yeah, so if you already have an account, but it's, sorry, yeah? Okay, yeah. So, so the people online who are joining us also, please create an account with your academic email address. I'll give you about 2 minutes to do so. For those people who have never used CodeCollab before and don't know how to use it, oh, okay, I jumped ahead already. Okay, okay. So you go to codecollab.io, you see this wonderful magical page, right? Zoom in a bit for you so that everybody can see. Right, head over to the top left-hand corner here, you see the login button, right? You click on the login button, and then you click sign up. Then you can either, if you're lazy, just click sign in with Google, and then sign in with your academic email address. Or, if not, you can also fill in your thing here, yeah. I suggest just clicking this, I'm lazy. Oh, except that I'm not logged into Google on this machine. On this browser. 1 second. Sorry? Oh. Yeah, and once you logged in, right, click on this little plus button, okay, over here, on the top right of your files browser. Search for language, just scroll down and you'll find HTML, CSS, and JS. Right, if you sign in with your academic email, this should be unlocked. Name, just call it anything, right? I'm just going to call this BuildingBloCS demo, right? And then after that, just hit create project. And then click on it to go in. Yeah. So that's the first thing I need you all to do. I'll give you 2 minutes, and then we'll continue at 06. If anyone has any issues, let me know. I understand that Wi-Fi here might be a bit slow, so if your machine like is taking a bit more time, just let it wait. Yeah. Yeah. So I repeat again, right? Go to codecollab.io, create an account with your academic email address, create a new HTML, CSS, JS project. Right, instructions. Look at the what? Yeah, the Wi-Fi here is a bit dodgy. Give it a while. Yeah. If it doesn't work, just be a bit more patient. Yeah. I don't know why also. The access point is just right up there, but for some reason, yeah. Alright, just go around here. Give you another 30 seconds more. Right, and then I'll slowly continue first. After that. If any issues, right, can you all maybe raise your hand, let me know, or let the facilities know, or if you really cannot, the Discord, right, is also Discord is the Discord channel is also a place where you can ask questions here. Right. So especially for the people who are joining us on Zoom, I may not be monitoring the Zoom chat all the time, but I have Discord open on another machine. So yeah, I can see the questions that they pop up. Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Right. Where slides? Slides. But I suggest you all, just follow the pacing of the lesson lah. Yeah. Yeah. This just if you want to, copy and paste, it might be a bit easier. Yeah. So yeah, another 15 seconds, and then I'll continue. Okay. Right. So maybe before I continue, right? Does anyone want to tell me what they think a website is, or what makes up a website? Anybody want to offer their thoughts? Online. Okay. Yeah. What else? World Wide Web. Okay. Yeah. .com. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Maybe we start off with instead of just going into the theory first, right? Let's start off with a bit of Exploratory Learning Lab. Okay. So you can follow along if you want. If not, it's also fine. I'm just going to use a very basic example site. Alright. It's literally example.com. Cannot get more basic than this. Yeah. It's a very basic site. As you can tell, it's literally just an illustrative example domain. It's just a sample site, right? But if you do a simple right click and inspect okay, get in line. Okay, so on Chrome it will be right click inspect element, right? Inspect. Yeah, and then you should also see something like this, yeah. I think it's the Chrome one because it handles the font sizing a bit better. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, yeah. So if you manage to follow along so far, right, you will see that when you click inspect, right, you will see something like this, right? You'll see something called elements, and then I think it's called elements in Firefox also. Inspector, right? And what is this, right? This is basically the It's basically the so-called code that makes up what you see on the web page. It's not really code, so to speak, right? It's more of it's literally just multi-text, right? Text with some special declarations, right? So if you were to right-click this body, right, and you expand recursively, or some, I think it's called expand all, right? You see that actually whatever text that you see on the left-hand side here, example domain. This domain is used for blah 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 blah, and then more information. You can see it here also, right? Example domain. This domain is used for use. So it's mostly plain text, right? There's no special, not really much of a special code to it, right? And if you take a look at the head also, you see some stuff that you don't actually see on the web page, right? For example, you see this thing called title, example domain. It's actually on the tab, right? So if you look at the tab, the title is actually your window title or your tab title, right? You cannot make project. Do you create an account with your academic email? Yeah, you need to create an account with your academic email. An email that has a .edu in it, yeah, in your domain, yeah. So, yeah. Right, so kind of like a basic exploration, and then if you want to go further along, just maybe explore a bit more, right? Let's say for example, right, I did this thing here, right? Let's say this domain is for the use of blah blah blah. This is boring, right? So I can just do blah blah blah, right? You see, the updates. Wow, magic, right? No, I'm just kidding. But what you're doing here is just reflected on your own machine. It's not going to be reflected on the server side, and that's because what you see here is actually whatever the server already sent to you, and it's just you can edit it, but it won't be sent back to the server. Yeah. So but we haven't really talked about what exactly HTML is, right, or what exactly makes up a website. So let's continue on with that, right? That's more transport than anything, but it's part of the whole process. Yeah. Let's talk a bit about HTML, right? To set some expectations, you won't be making websites like like you see like Apple or Google. Maybe Google you can maybe replicate a bit. The main search page is relatively simple. Or maybe I don't know, Facebook, Instagram. You won't be doing that like right out of the gate, right? Most likely you'll be making a site that looks straight out of the 90s, right? Plain text, that kind of thing. That's because that's kind of like the more basic type first, and then before you move on to more complex UI. Yeah? But I mean you start from the basics first, and after you build up, right? So let's talk a bit about what we'll cover today. We'll talk a bit about what is needed in the basic HTML file, right? Some of the default text types, lists, hyperlinks, images, so on and so forth. If any of these words are a bit foreign to you, it's fine, we'll go through them in a bit. Default text types basically is like different type of text that you can just see, and you can kind of like get out of normal HTML without having to do anything extra. Lists, this is like list. Hyperlinks are links that bring you somewhere else. Images, enough said. Alright. So what exactly is HTML? It's short for Hypertext Markup Language. What basically that means is that it's a language that kind of like just has a bunch of rules saying like, oh, you must do this and do that, and then it will show it in some other way, right? Yeah, so it's a basic set of rules governing a text document that everybody follows. So everybody follows this one standard, and then everybody will know how to show this thing, right? All your browsers, right now we are talking about HTML5 was released, I don't know, 2011, 2010, something like that, I don't know. A while back, right? And most sites you see now, there's a bit of there's a difference like between the different HTML versions. If you want to look more into it, you can do so at your own time. We won't be covering that today. But what this basically means is that because it's a markup language, it's kind of like you're typing into Microsoft Word. Right? It's not actually coding. Sad to say, right? But it's still kind of like a fancier way of representing your stuff, I guess. Right. So let's talk about basic HTML site. So a very basic HTML site looks like this. Your text document looks like this. There's a few segments, right? And I'll just break it down in a bit. Actually, let me jump into screen share. I don't have an academic account. Okay, maybe you can DM me your email address or something like that. I can help you look into it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'm heading into full screen for a bit. So there's 3 parts, I guess. You could say 3 parts to your main HTML. Or technically 2 parts, okay? 2 parts in the header. So this first line, right? This is doc type HTML, right? it actually specifies what HTML version is, because different HTML versions declare this differently. And so if you declare .type HTML in this specific case, it tells the browser that you're using HTML5. And then after that, once you declare that you're using HTML5, you put everything else in this HTML. Oh, I didn't actually close it. Whoops. Whoopsies. I didn't see that. Okay, whatever. Okay, then I just draw let me just draw in a little, a little closing thing here. Yeah, all fine. See, we don't shitpost here, right? Yeah. So, anyways, everything's inside this HTML. We call these things tags, right? So this the word embedded inside this angle brackets, we call it a tag, and a pair of matching tags, which means opening tag and a closing tag. A closing tag is shown by this slash in front of the word, right? So a pair of opening and closing tags make up what we call an element, right? So you have your HTML element, you have like your title element. So this entire thing is okay. This entire thing here is your title element, right? This is your and this is your H1 element, so on and so forth, lah, right? Okay, let me clear this RVS drawing. Okay, yeah. So so in your HTML, like you notice, right? There's a head and then there's a body, right? The head is usually where all the stuff that you don't see goes, right? Like for example, it's just like I guess your human body, right? Your brain. People don't really see your brain, but people see your body, sadly, right? So body is where all the things that all the stuff that you see on the screen usually is, right? So like if we go back to the example just now, we got H, right? See all your H1, your example domain, your blah blah blah, all these are all under the body tag. See, I close the body tag, I open the body tag again, see everything is in here. Yeah. So all the stuff in the body tag is basically stuff that you can see, the stuff that the browser actually renders up. Then what about stuff in the head? Stuff in the head is actually stuff that kind of like, it sounds like defining information, right? In this case here, it tells the browser, this meta char set UTF-8 basically tells the browser that the text encoding is UTF-8, which is a certain type of text encoding, and tells it some other things are like compatibility things, like something about, no, this one doesn't have it. Some default headers have like something to do with Internet Explorer and forcing it to H. Yeah, if you use Embed abbreviations, hold on. Use Embed abbreviations. Like you type one exclamation mark, you press tab, it auto completes. There's some stuff about compatibility stuff and forcing you to use H, whatever. That is about time IE anyways. So yeah, that's kind of like the basic structure of a HTML file, I guess. Right, you have your head, and then inside your head contains a lot of metadata, a lot of links to other things. And then your body is where all the stuff that you want to show is. There's a bit of an exception to that when it comes to JavaScript. Sometimes you see people put JavaScript in the head, sometimes you see people put JavaScript in the body. There is this thing called, okay, if you go further deeper into web dev, there's this thing called the DOM, right? HTML, there's this thing called the DOM, I can't remember what it called. It's called the document object model, right? So depending on where your JavaScript is, right, your code will be loaded in at different times, and it might have different effects on how your website actually loads and how your website actually looks. So yeah, there's certain edge cases where you want to put your JavaScript code at the bottom, but again, stuff that we won't really talk about today, right? So right, we've been talking about this code, and what you will see is actually something along the lines of. Let me close this for my people who are in the SR. Let me try and get this a bit. Yeah. So this is what you see. Quite unassuming, right? Quite plain, nothing, right? Right. There's only two things you see, right? We declared two things here, right? We declared your title here and the H1 here. So likewise, we have a title here. That's the tag title, and we have H1 text, right? And you may be wondering, what is H1, right? What is this H1 thing that I've been talking about? So if you would like to follow along, you can pull up a Google Doc, right? And I don't know how many of you all actually use this, use this thing. But in Google Docs, there's this thing, not just in Google Docs, right? Microsoft Word and Pages and all those, most of your text editors that deal with rich text, they have this they have this thing called headers, right? Headers basically help you segment information, right? So heading 1 usually means the biggest, right? You attended Jiaxuan's workshop. If you attended Jiaxuan's workshop in the morning, you know something. He said something about using font size and font weight to kind of like show hierarchy, right? So same thing here, right? You see, right? If I erase everything here, right? This is not my normal text, right? Normal text, completely normal text. But if I apply H1 to it, or heading 1, it automatically applies a certain set of rules to it, right? The default heading 1 in Google Docs is you increase the font size, and then that's about it. And then as you go down, further down, heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, you notice that the font size gets smaller, the font color gets a bit lighter, things like that. And it establishes some sort of hierarchy, right? And in HTML, right, there's up all the way from H1 all the way to H6, I think, or H7, I can't remember. You can try it out later, right? And yeah, but just because it's a header, right, doesn't mean that it will be bigger than a normal text, right? I think I have an example here. Yeah, so this is H1 to H6. Again, the same shit posty manner, right? And this is a regular paragraph text. So what is a regular paragraph text? If you look at example.com, right, you see this H1, right, and it's like a header, right, and then you have your normal text, which is in this P text. It's a paragraph. We call this the paragraph element. So this is a H1 element, and this is a paragraph element. So paragraph element is for like your normal text, right? So yeah, so just because it's header doesn't mean it will be bigger, I mean, but then again, you can configure it to whatever you like. Yeah, just not to assume it. But anyways, right, let's do a bit of a short demo. So if you were able to follow along with and create your own CodeCollab account, right? Right now, I'd like you to head over to your CodeCollab project, right? And on the left-hand side, right, you will see your file explorer. There are 3 files, right, inside the folder. There is index.html, index.css, and index.js. To be honest, right, these file names are not necessarily following what we call convention. Index.html is conventional. Yeah. Normally, your first HTML file will be called index. Yes. Is there something? Okay. Yeah. If there's something to let me know, just feel free to let me know. But yeah, normally we call CSS, right, style.css and JS. Okay, JS there's a bunch, but normally it's like add.js or something like that. But I mean, it doesn't really matter. I just want you to click on the index.html, right? And you can start building your first site along with me, right? It's not my first site, but it might be your first site. So you wait for the editor to load in, and I will also increase the font size a bit. Oh wow, that is tiny. Maybe not 24, 20? Sure. And let's use the better theme. I don't know. Is this a better theme? I can't tell. Alright. Anyways, right, so as you may have recalled from the slides, or if you have copied the slides link just now, again, it's go.buildingblocks.sg/2022/webdev-slides, I think. I think so.
It's on the Discord.
It's on the Discord? Somebody sent it already? Okay, nice, thank you. Yeah, so if you remember from the slides, right, we have our basics to our first HTML site, right? So I'm just going to speed run the typing real quick. Right, so first line we declare what version of HTML we have. You can auto-complete for you, which is nice. Then we put everything in a HTML element. Then we have our head. And then we have our body. Right? And in your head, nothing much, right? Normally people put a title, like a site title. Right? So like for example, this site will be Building Blocks Demo. Maybe for my site, I call it it's Building Blocks Demo. We're gonna do demo can change your theme, by the way. If you click on the bottom right hand corner, there's this theme changer here. Yeah, if you want to, I don't know, change colors or whatever, you can do so lah. Yeah, and then you can do that. Okay, so yeah, building blocks demo site, right? And then if you were to click on this button on the top right hand corner, it will open the site in a new tab, and you can see here that now your site now has your title. Wow, amazing. But it's still a blank slide, right? There's nothing there. Let's add some stuff to our body. So maybe let's start with the H1, right? Maybe let's say I don't know, welcome to Building Blocks 2022. Hello. Okay. So remember, right? Every time you start a tag element with an opening tag, you have to close it with a closing tag. And to close the tag, right, just prepare a slash in front of the whatever tag it is. Yeah. So if you were to reload the page here, or if you go to your page now and reload it, you should see a mega welcome to Building Blocks 2022. Not really that mega lah. On the projector, not very big. I zoom in a bit. Yeah. Okay. And then moving on, right? Maybe let's add a bit of a paragraph to like to maybe talk a bit about Building Blocks 2022. Let's say I don't know Building Blocks 2022 holds a web dev workshop that everyone everyone here is currently attending, right? And then now if you see on the right now, it also say Building Blocks 2022 covers a web dev workshop that everyone here is currently attending. Wow, amazing. You can also have multiple of the same tags. You don't necessarily have only one. You can have multiple p tags in a row, right? Unfortunately, I'm a bit too lazy, so I'm just going to look up Laurel Ibsen generator and then Oh my god, this is in Bing. One moment. Let me write this in real quick. Search.
What is this?
Goodbye. Gone. Okay, let's go. Oh, okay. Let's generate 5 paragraphs. Sure, why not? Yeah, and now our site is a suspend page, right? So yeah, you can paste it in here. You can just add the P at the back and the P at the front. And technically it's a paragraph. Technically it's a paragraph. It looks ugly, right? It spans multiple lines. There's a break line in the middle, but technically this is valid HTML. And actually HTML is very linear. It's linear to the point, right? If you don't put anything and you just put plain text, it will serve you the plain text. Yeah. So yeah, but I mean this kind of thing is like people kind of like know kind of what to expect from people like in the sense that like they try to foolproof the system now. Okay, so even if you write something that isn't valid, they try its best to show you what it is, right? But of course, if you place in our 5 paragraphs of Laurel Ibsen, right, you notice that there's no paragraph. It's just one entire chunk, right? And that's because to HTML, right, this entire thing is one paragraph, and it doesn't actually take into account breaklines. So one easy way, I guess, is you can close this tag, and then open another one, right? And I guess you could separate that into paragraphs that way. The other way is there is this thing called a break line. It doesn't need a closing tag, but it does break the line. See, there's a line break here. Yeah, but there's no like separation lah. There's no separation because it's a bit semantically it's a bit different, right? Yeah. So it's like carriage return and line feed if people ever like care about that. Nowadays you press enter, right? It's just a new line. But if you go back, but people are still using terms like back in the typewriter era, like returning line 1 down and returning to start the line, for example. So there are semantics like this also. But yeah, this is just Laurel Ibsen, and this makes the entire site look horrendous. So let me just get rid of this real quick. Gone. All right. So that's your basic like text, right? Now let me introduce a bit of a list. So lists are one way of showing information, right? There are 2 types of lists. There are ordered lists and unordered lists. So similar to Microsoft Word or Google Slides or whatever, right? You have your I'll bring this up again. hold on. So you have your, one, like your one, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? This is an example of an ordered list. There's an order to it, right? You also have your unordered list, right? And it's just, a bunch of dots, for example. This is an example of an unordered list because there's no order to it. Right? There's no order of ranking of importance. So, in HTML, right? I guess logically enough, ordered list, the tag for it is OL, right? And everything in the ordered list is a list element, so it's LI, right? And then you can just type your stuff in there. Hello, I don't know, banana, tomato, whatever, right? Gets the point across, right? There you go. That's an ordered list. And then, because I'm a very lazy person, I will copy and paste this same exact list. And I'm just going to change 2 characters. I'm going to change this ordered list to unordered list. So UL. And boom, there you go, unordered list. It's a dot instead. Yeah, wow, right. And then of course, this is not all that HTML can do, you know about like clickable links and stuff, right? So yeah, that absolutely is the case for. Hello. Okay, whatever. That's absolutely the case for like making links, right? So let's say I want to add a link, right? I don't know. And for a link, right? So far everything is like quite, the naming is quite makes sense, right? Links not really. Link they call it an anchor tag. So instead of link, it's A. And then /A to close it. Right? But the thing is that if you just type some stuff in here, like ooh, funny video here, I don't know, funny video here. It doesn't it should not show up as a link. Yeah, it shows up as plain text. And that's because there's no link associated with this anchor tag. To associate a link, right, to send your user somewhere when you click it, right, you have to use this inside your opening tag, right. You have to use this thing called href, and that is a it's basically a reference to another website, lah, right. And it has to be in inverted commas. So I guess some of you have Python experience, something like that. It's a string, lah, basically. And then you can put your, then from there you can just put your, hold on, let me get back network. And then from there you can put your link, right? I don't know, let's just do build.com / watch DQ. What's the rickroll? Does anyone memorize it? What's the rickroll URL? I can't remember it. It's DQ something. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Let's just go to YouTube. Wait. Again. Wait. /watch v equals to DQ what?
D uppercase Q.
Yeah.
Lowercase W. Lowercase W9. Uppercase W.
Sorry? G.
Then uppercase X. CQ.
G uppercase X.
C. Uppercase Q.
Uppercase what? Q. Like this.
Yeah.
Are you sure that feels like it's one extra character?
No.
DQ for yeah, just click on it, right? What could go wrong? What could ever go wrong? Let's see. What could go wrong is I could type the URL wrongly, and then it doesn't actually work. In the off chance that it does work,
Let's go.
Happy now? Okay. Yeah, not everybody all awake already, right? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's one thing, right? That is YouTube.com refused to comment. That's hilarious. So that's one thing, right? Links, anchor text, right? There's also images, right? And thankfully, images, we are going back to same naming conventions again. It's just img, right? It's just img. Image, except that you don't refer to image as href, you refer to image as source. Yay, thank you. Whoever came up with this, thank you very much. And source, you can put anything. You can put a path to a local image that you have, or you can put a path to an image on the web. So, I don't know, let's just say images. It's never a good idea to bring up Google Images in front of the class. Rick Astley. Right? I don't know. What's a good photo? Right, here, let's get this one. Ons. Yeah.
No, get a GIF.
Yeah, a GIF. Now, GIF is a bit more.
GIF is a better one.
It's okay. Let's get. Is that the 4K remaster like thumbnail that we can get with like that looks like surprisingly crisp. Whatever. Let's grab this one. This works. Right. So image source equals to this. Oh, you didn't copy. Try that again. Copy image link. There we go. Copied. Wow, that is a very garbage link. Let's try that again. Open image in new tab. Can I? Okay, you know what? Apparently that is the link. Whatever, let's do that. And then we close it, and this should work. Yeah, we now have a gigantic photo of Rick Astley, where his face doesn't even fit in the frame. There you go. We'll fix this later. We'll come back to this later, right? We'll come back to this later. There is styling that you can do to it, right? And then of course, lastly, what else did I mention? This hyperlinks, images. There's also other things, right? You can add media. You can embed YouTube videos and stuff. You can go try that on your own, right? I'm for the sake of time, I will not really go into that today. Yeah. So, wait, what else did I say here? Yeah, okay. That's mostly what I covered. Okay, now let's go on to CSS, right? Decorating with CSS. What is CSS? CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. Very cheap name. Very painful. Also very unfriendly to British people because it's the Americans who made it and they spell things the American way. So you want to make a color, you have to spell C-O-L-O-R. Cannot spell C-O-L-O-U-R. Yeah. For example, right? Basically, it allows you to stylize your website lah. Sorry? Okay. Yeah, so the way people normally do it is people normally put their styles in separate folders. You can do it on the same HTML file. You can do that. Nothing wrong. But people normally will put it in a separate file, right? So the way you do it is you link the file. So instead of using link for a link, you use link for linking files. Okay, whatever, fair enough. So there's two parts to this, right? This link element, right, there is two things. There is the relationship, which says that, oh, this thing is a style sheet. And then there's the href, which tells it where the style sheet is. Right? And in our case, on CodeCollab, our style sheet is called index.css. And I'm kind of lazy to rename it, so I'm just going to stick with it. Okay? So in our head, we normally people link the style sheets in the head. So in our head, we just put link. Relationship equals to style sheet. href equals to /index.css. Why is it /? Technically, you don't need to do it. It's just when we refer to folders, right? Dot means the current folder, and then slash means the current whatever's in the current folder, and then whatever's in the current folder, same folder as index.html is index.css lah. You could also put index.css, but sometimes I don't know on I think Windows or I can't remember. Things get a bit weird, and then of course there's a forward slash and backslash thing which I don't deal with, right? So you link your index.css, and so now we go back to our page and we reload, and nothing happened because we didn't write anything. So yeah, and I mean CSS is a whole different ballgame. Give me a moment. Let me get back online. One moment. I can't track Discord if this thing is out of not connecting to the internet.
He sent a sticker. Where? He sent it to me before.
Okay, hold on now, one moment.
Who is that? He edit my face after
Okay, so right, so how do we go about writing our index.css file? The syntax obviously, right, different language, different kind of syntax. Normally you can go about things in I guess mainly three ways, or at least for vanilla CSS, right? You can address all the elements in with a certain like element tag name. So for example, you can address all the H1s, you can address all the Ps, you can address all the LIs, so on and so forth. You can address everything in the HTML file, everything in the HTML header as well. But usually that's not very useful, because it's like using a blunt like it's kind of like using like a blunt object to kill and like I don't know where I was going, but you get the idea. It's like overly excessive and it's not very useful. It's not very effective in being like stylistic, right? Stylistic, you want to change every little tiny detail. Well, not really, usually it's not really a good idea, but you get the idea, right? So so there's to specify which certain elements you want to do. There's two ways. You can use something called a class. That means you assign a class to a certain element, right? Class is basically like an identifier or something like that. And let's say for example this class is intro, right? And then maybe down here I also make this tag class intro, right? So even though these are two very different tags, I can still apply the same CSS, or you will still try to apply the same CSS to both of them. And then another one that people normally sometimes use is this thing called ID. So you can also do ID equals to more tags, I don't know, something like that, right? Or description. ID equals description. And then there are three. Of course, with class and ID, and of course just normally referring to things. There's different ways of addressing them, right? So if we want to just address our text, our normal text. Right, CSS has this style. You start by identifying what you want to change. Let's say I want to change the paragraph. They have a space, not paren. They have a space, and then you have curly braces. Right, open up the curly braces. And then you type in whatever things you want to change. And after every line, you have a semicolon to tell it, okay, that's the end of the line. So let's say, I want to change it to, I don't know, web safe aqua, the best color ever. So I put color equals to aqua, right? COLOR. Remember your American spelling. And then boom, we have this wonderful text with unreadable color. Just the best thing, right? For demo. I'm just kidding. Let's try, I don't know, confound blue. I think confound blue is a bit better. Yeah, so that's an example. The nice thing is that this code collab platform is also running. It's basically running the VS Code editor, so there's like some, nice stuff with the VS Code editor you can also just use in here, right? Like this color, like this text thing. You can also set colors without names, right? You can use RGB values. I'll let you play with that later. Sorry. And then, hold on, where was I? Okay. So for example, that's like addressing it by the element, right? If we can address it by the class also. And to address by the class, right, you use this, you use a dot, right? So let's say I want to address I have this class called intro. The guys in front. So let's say, right, you can also like have multiple things open at once. So let me just do that real quick. Not very helpful. Always show people full screen off. There we go. Slightly better, I hope. Right. Can you still see? I don't think so, right? Okay, never mind. Let me zoom back in. So let's say, right, I have this class intro that I want to address, right? And this intro is applied to this H1, which is all the way up here, and it's also applied to this tag link, right? This very funny video that we have here. So let's say I want to change the, I don't know, for some reason I want to apply a highlight to it. I can do .intro, which is how you address a class. And then inside it, let's say we do background color. Guys, what's the color? Give a color.
Red.
Red, okay, red. Piss yellow. What? What did I just hear? Anyways, yeah. We now have a hideously ugly background color with our H1 and with our link tag. Right? So this is how you can apply, same like, maybe it's the same group of styling that you want to apply to different objects. You can just use you can just make it a class and just make them conform to that class. Right. And lastly, ID. Right. Sometimes ID you normally use for, like, let's say in JavaScript you want to target specific fields, and then we use ID. You can also style those specific fields with ID by using a hash. Not hashtag, it's a hash. Yeah. So you do hash description. I don't know, what should we do? Let's do font size 100px. Let's make it extra big, right? And now we have a description that is humongously large. If I didn't, I misspelled size, so that's quite sad. Let's try that again. Boom! Wow! Utterly unusable text. Terrible. But yeah, it shows you that. Okay, there's different ways of addressing CSS stuff. Okay, I'm gonna give you. Okay, I'm gonna give you, let's say, maybe the next 5 to 10 minutes. Just try out on your own, making your own site. Just filling up your page with whatever you want. And then once you feel like you've done enough, can I get you to copy and paste this link, right, and send it to Discord, right? So for example, I will send my awesome link with funny video into this channel, right? Okay, let me zoom in a bit, right? Zoom in a bit. Zoom, on the zoom. Wow, zoom. You know what? Let's go even one step further. Let's improve the appearance, right? Boom. How many people did I just buy?
Disgusting.
I'm just kidding. But yeah, take the next 9 minutes, right? I'll set a timer. Okay. Wait, I said 9 minutes. Yeah. So I'll set a timer for 9 minutes. You guys can refer to, if you want more resources, right? Hold on. If you want more resources, there are some stuff over here that might be useful to you. Some may be useful resources. If you want to refer to them, I've sent them in the chat. And yeah, take the next. Feel free to Google. Feel free to ask questions. Raise your hands. Take the next 8 minutes and 14 seconds to try it out. Yeah, and then once the timer's up, we'll continue. You can use this thing called a media element, or an embed. Both works. If you go over to this HTML reference, right, there is this thing called HTML video, and then you can use the video tag. Yeah, but this is if you have the video file. There's also, like, if you go to, like, for example, youtube.com, right? If you go to youtube.com on an account that on a browser that I don't use, alright, never gonna give you up. Let's go, whatever. Again, and you go to share, right? YouTube. Okay, by the way, if you want to, like, embed YouTube videos, if you go to YouTube, right, there's this share button. You can click on embed, and it gives you a whole ass thing that you can copy, right? So you just copy this thing. It's called an iframe. It's basically an integrated frame. It's like a web page within a web page, right? You copy that, and then you paste it, into your code. And then now I have oh wow, this site is truly horrendous. I now have embed of Rick Astley on my already horrendous site. Let's go. Yeah. If you are okay. Okay, I see some people submitting already. Just doesn't need to be perfect. Just feel free to submit, alright? Share with everybody. Yeah. Just don't. I should probably do this in Firefox. Don't want to get instantly rickrolled too many times. Yeah. But. Yeah, but in your place I would. So I know what it's like. All right, time's up. Okay. Okay, just submit your stuff. You make it so the images. How do I make it so that the images that the hyperlink we did earlier aren't just side by side? You can use display block in your CSS. Oh, oops. No, without the L. Okay. Somebody asked just now, right? I think. Okay, wait. Let's get rid of this hideous font size 100 thing first. Let's get rid of that. Oh, oops. Let's just do, I don't know, font size 24 px. Something more reasonable.
Why Cory doing excellent hackers?
Okay. Guys. Oh, I know why I'm not speaking my mind. Okay, guys, can I have your attention? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So right, somebody asked the question, right? How do I make it such that some elements are not side by side, right? For example, in this example here, my YouTube embed, my glorious YouTube embed is right next to a link. How do I make it not the case, right? What you do is you can actually apply this thing called display block, right? It's a CSS thing, right? I'm just gonna show you. I'm actually not even going to edit the site. I'm just gonna show you here. If you go to when you inspect element, right? The top part is your HTML. The bottom part is actually your CSS, right? So if you select the link item, right? Maybe I zoom this one out a bit, so it's side by side, right? So right now you see side by side, right? If you're in enough space, if I select this the link, right, and then I add to the style display block, it now takes the entire width of the thing. Yeah, and then similarly, if let's say I don't know, for some reason you want your unordered list to be, you know, on the same line, you can do display. I think you can do this. Oh no, that's for. What am I saying? Yeah. Similarly, if you want to put things side by side, right? Like for example, your image and your video, you can do display in line. Yeah. So block basically means it takes up the entire block. Okay. Let's review some of your submissions. Alright. I'm really mentally prepared already. Oh wow. Somebody found the marquee tag, guys. Yeah, this tag is surprisingly, this thing has been around since like 1990 something. Like it was introduced a long time ago. So I don't know why it still exists, but it still exists. Wait, that's a marquee tag, right? Yeah, that's a marquee tag. Okay. Okay, sure. But indirectly calling me out, you're also calling everybody else out here, so you know. You should all get butthurt also. Just kidding. Okay, just kidding. Alright, another one from Kairos. Let's see. Why monkey is good actually? I feel like some of these links are like suspicious, you know. Oh. Okay, fairly harmless, you know, we have a Wikipedia article to a monkey here. Actually, no, Wikipedia sometimes you also don't know. Alright. Okay, let's see, what else? Rick Astley is the best. Definitely not Rick Roll. Okay, we've had too many of these. Okay, alright. Okay. At least within the context of this workshop, keep it, you know, please lah. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Oh, nice cat. Cool. Right. Let's see, what else do we have here? Okay, right. So, alright, let me close all this. Yeah, let me close all this. And let me also get my slides reloaded too, why not? Give me a moment. Okay, yeah. So let's get back to business. Right. Adding interactions, right? So now comes the point where we try to make your site a bit more interactive. Okay. But before that, we have to understand some of the basics first, right? So just like how we did the basics with HTML and CSS first, we need to first understand the basics of JavaScript first before we can apply it to our site, right? So yeah, how using JavaScript on the site. Alright, so what is JavaScript? JavaScript is a programming language kind of originally meant for the web, but it was a terrible language But it was a terrible language that somehow people still adopted and then now people use it. And it's still kind of terrible, but people use it, so it's not so terrible anymore. Right. So just to get a bit of foundation first, we'll be doing the basic stuff, right? Every time you learn programming languages, then how to output text, make variables, arithmetic, logic flow, basic functions, so on and so forth. If you want to learn more and you want to learn more a bit quickly and you have a bit of programming experience already, there's this very useful guide, Learn X in Y minutes. It's very interesting in the sense that it summarizes things that you need to know, the basics, in a very, very short amount of time. Right? And this doesn't apply to just JavaScript. There's Learn X in Y minutes for a bunch of things. Yeah. So let's zoom this in a bit. And then send this to dark mode. Y'all love your dark mode, right? Yeah. Yeah, it was created in 1995. But it's kind of sad. Okay. But before we go into this document, before we go into this page, let's start by doing a bit of basic JavaScript. So the easiest way to run JavaScript code, right, is all you need to do is open your console again, right? You go over to the console page. It's always the second tab, right? Even on like Edge browsers, right? You open this up, and you go to console, and then this is your JavaScript console. Wow, there's a lot of things that have been blocked by client. Okay, whatever. I think it's just ad blocker. Yeah. So just open a new tab, right, and then go to your JavaScript console, right? And I'm going to zoom this in a bit more just so you guys can see. Right. And if for those of you have done Python before, right, y'all may be familiar with the Python repo. Read the thing that when you open idle, then there's the thing, and then you're like, oh, I actually don't want to run my code there. I need to create a new file, whatever. That environment is kind of similar to this. It's also like a repo. Repo stands for read, evaluate, print loop. Right, so it's like you read the line of code that you put, it evaluates the line of code, it prints anything out, and then repeats again. Right. So the most basic thing in JavaScript that you can do in terms of outputting is this thing called console.log. Right? And console.log is a function, right, that you call. Okay? And anything that you put in that function in this little brackets here, it will be printed the console. The console being this, right? It's called the console. Yeah. So let's say for example I just want to print a normal hello world, right? So I just print hello world. Right, and then it says, oh, print the hello world, and then it says undefined for some reason. We'll get back to that. We'll get back to the undefined thing. So, sorry? Okay. So anyways, yeah. So the most basic, kind of thing that you can do is just console.log. And that basically logs to the console. This is the console, it logs to it. You can also do, you're like in the Python idle, you can do math. You can also do math here. You can do 1 plus 1, and it tells you it's 2. You can do 2 plus 2, and it tells you it's 4. You can do 2 plus 2, and it will tell you it's 22 because you are trying to add a string to a number, and for some reason, JavaScript tries to make it work, and it says, okay, you're trying to add 2 strings, right? Okay, come and concatenate the 2 of them together. You get 22. Yeah. Unfortunately, you can't pull this off in a math exam and you'll fail if you do so. Yeah. JavaScript is a bit, the reason why I say JavaScript was a terrible language is that it has this thing called type coercion. in the sense that it tries to make everything true, right? It's like it tries to please people. So in the case, right, like for example, if you want to check, you want to ask, right, does 1 equals to 1, right? To check for equality, normally you use 2 equal signs, right? So if I ask you, does 1 equals to 1, that is true, right? But if I ask you, does 1 equals to the string 1, technically it's not true, right? A string of 1 does not equal to the number 1. But for some reason, JavaScript says it's true. Because of this thing called type coercion, right? You try to coerce, you try to force basically the type to be true. Try to force us to make things true. So then people didn't like this behavior, but then they say, oh, we cannot change it because some people might have already relied on this behavior. So instead of fixing this, they say, okay, I make you happy, I make you happy. We introduce a triple equality sign. This one checks for type. So if the value is the same but the type is different, it does its false. But only if it's a triple equality. Kind of stupid. There's a bunch of other stuff, right? So that's like kind of the weird logic of JavaScript, right? There's some other there's more quirky stuff. There's more quirky stuff, right? But just a big basic run through, right? So we did console.log just now, right? And what console.log is basically it's running a function, right? It's a function, and the reason why it returns undefined is because it does something, but then it doesn't. You don't expect it to return anything. So it kind of doesn't return anything, and therefore the return value is undefined. But you are still calling a function, right? And functions, right? Basically, in JavaScript, you call them like this, lah, right? And you don't necessarily need to use semicolons. But people still do, and it's kind of good to do so because sometimes you want to put give more than one line of code on a single line. So yeah, people sometimes do semicolons. Yeah, so like the stuff that I told you just now. Oh, this is actually terrible contrast. Let's go with the line. Right. So yeah, basic arithmetic, right? Like this, you expect to work, uneven division. I'm gonna ignore bitwise and stuff. Because whatever. There's a true or false, right? There's strings, right? You can use single quotes or double quotes for strings, right? There is the negation symbol. In Python, if you don't do Python, this is the not, right? In JavaScript and in some other languages, they just use the negation symbol, just a bang, or in this case, exclamation mark, right? So exclamation mark true means not true. Not true means false. So on and so forth. Equality is, as I mentioned, triple equal sign because double equal sign isn't actually checking for equality. Inequality is therefore exclamation mark double equal sign because go figure, right? Yeah, you can add strings. This process of putting strings together, we call it string concatenation. It's a big word. Basically means putting those strings together, right? And then yeah, this thing I mentioned just now. Works in more than just strings. I can add 1 and 2 and 3 and it will give me 1, 2, 3. Right? You can compare strings, whatever. And this is kind of like, if you want to know a bit more, there's some stuff here that it covers here. But let's talk a bit about variables, right? Okay. So let's talk a bit about variables. In JavaScript, there's mainly 3 types of ways that you can define a variable. Basically, there's 3 main keywords you can use, right? And I've very helpfully put it in here: let versus var versus const. Now, let me ask you, out of the 3 here, which one do you think you should use? Let. Variable. Definitely not rig as sleep. Yeah. Okay. They all have their own uses. Okay. So const means constant, yes. Doesn't change. Whereas let and variable can change. But there's a difference in variable and let. Variable is sorry? No, you can share. Okay. So anyways, let is that if you have learned about function scope or variable scoping, let the variable exists only within a certain scope. So that means, let's say for example you have a function, right? And you create a variable in that function. If you create a variable with let, the variable only exists within that function. Versus if you create a variable with var, the variable exists even outside of the function. So for example, right, I don't know. This pseudocode, not actual code. Let's say for example, using I don't know, function test, right? And then you have var x, right? Var x equals to, I don't know, some string. Hi, I don't know. Ooh. Right? If I go out and then maybe let's say we console.log x, right? So the moment I run this function, right? Let's say for example I console.log x originally. X doesn't exist because it's not a variable created yet, right? But basically what happens is that if I call test and then I call console.log again, technically what should happen is that it will print out hi again, because when you set x, when you make x as a variable, like using var, it sets it within the global context, which is not good. It's not something that you want. So people usually don't use var for JavaScript, which is a bit confusing because I don't know if some of y'all here do Swift. Let is a constant and var is a variable, and I do both, and I sometimes get confused between the two. Yeah, so like for the longest time I was like, that cannot change, right? And I was like, no, that can change. Yeah. Like basically in different languages they use let differently, right? So logics and codes, I mentioned some of it just now. Functions and then demo. Okay, right. So let's do a bit of demo. To run a function, right? Not sure how many of y'all have not sure how many of y'all have reached the have wrote like I don't know functions in different language yet. But the function basically is a bunch of code that you can put together that you can call multiple times to repeat, right? So guys in the back. Okay, so as I was mentioning just now, right, function basically is a bunch of code that you can like group together to kind of like recall it, and then this basically enables code reuse, right? So you can call functions. Okay, functions can be either named or unnamed, but for in this case, we're just going to go to name functions, right? So we can call a function whatever. Let's just call this testing, right? And then you have to first put the brackets. The whatever's in the brackets is basically the argument. That means the things that the function needs to run. And after that, you have your code within these angular brackets. Let me try and zoom in. Sorry people on Zoom, I'm not sure if you can see it clearly. I'm trying to zoom in for the people on NES lah. Right. And then you can put in your code, right? Console.log 1+1, right? For example. And then I create the function, I run the function, I cannot spell evidently. I run the function and then it returns 2, right? Or at least it prints 2, and it doesn't return anything, but it prints 2. Okay, let's clear you can clear your console by clicking on this trash bin here. So like sometimes you see like a lot of red, right? It's because like if you have like ad blocker, what ad blocker does is that it blocks the connection, right? It blocks ads. And then because it blocks ad, right, then your website cannot find the ad. So it will complain here that it's an error, I cannot find it. Because technically you're supposed to load it. Yeah, but and then the console gets too messy, you can just clear it. So kind of a basic intro to functions. Let's try and integrate it back into our site, right? So alright. Okay, so back to this hideous demo of hideous piece of website. Let's try to put a bit of interactivity to it. Okay, wait, hold on. One more thing. There's also like other like default functions that you can put. Something that is sorry, okay. So another like kind of like default function that you have in JavaScript is this thing called alert. It alerts you, right? Let's say I send an alert, it sends an alert, right? Same thing here. If you were to, oh my god. How do I? Let me move this. Oh. Can you guys see my screen? Were you unable to see my screen at that time?
How do I make it so that my images?
Okay. You know what? Whatever. Okay. Right. So same thing here. You can call an alert. Oh my god. Whatever. And then you can send a message in, and then it will show your alert. This is one of the things that sometimes if you I think if you listen to like there's a cybersecurity talk on Saturday, I think. I'm not sure how much into cybersecurity they actually cover. I think it's a more of like a broad overview. But like if you're talking about like testing websites and things like that, one of the main ways you try and like see if you can inject code is you try and throw an alert. And if the alert works, then maybe it's more vulnerable than you thought. Okay. Enough sidetracking. Let's go back to our site and let's put a bunch of let's go directly against the advice of Jiachen and put a bunch of buttons. Not because I want to do the button, but because not because I want to make it messy, but just because it's kind of like more like a testing area for you right now. I don't recommend you all do this, especially not in your hackathon, but it's just more like getting you all familiar with what you can do, right? So let's say directly below this hideous header, let's create a button. And to create a button, right? Usually you put a button in the form. For the purpose of this, we don't actually exactly need a form, so we just create a button on its own, right? So to create a button, you do button, right? And then you close it with button. Wow, who would have thought? And then to have text in the button, you put the text in between the button text. Who would have thought? Wow, press me, right? And if I go to the let me close this first. I go to the thing, you see the press me thing here, right? This is a button. It does nothing right now. It does nothing, right? I'm pressing it does nothing. So it's basically like I don't know. Insert joke about I don't know teammates or whatever. I don't know. Yeah. So right now it does nothing, right? If it's just a button that does something. How do we add interactivity to it, right? Two things. First of all, we need to, if you want to write JavaScript code, you can do it two ways as well, right? You can either write JavaScript code again in the HTML file, or you can put it in a separate file. For the purposes of this workshop, we're going to try to put it in a separate file just to consolidate all your code together, right? So if you put your code in a separate file, of course you have to link the code somehow, right? And so the way you link your code, right, is by actually adding a link, like not a link, a link to the script in your head, not your head, right? The way you do this is you declare a script, not a link. You declare a script, and then tell it where the source is. In this case, again, index.js, right? And then you close it, and then you don't close it because it's already closed for you. And then, yeah. Do you need to close the script? No. Yeah, you need to close it. Okay, whatever. Sure. Nope. Yeah. Okay. So now this links to your index.js, and just to test that it's actually linked, right? Let's do a console.log. Hello. Right? No interactivity. It will just console.log it the moment your page loads, right? And it just allows us to test that, make sure we did link our JavaScript file. So back to this, right? We go to open our console. Actually, you can also open your console in this page. You can press escape, and it will bring up the console at the very bottom. I'm not going to do that because at that point you cannot see anything already. So I'm going to bring it up here. I'm going to bring this zoom bar down again. I'm so sorry. I can just wait. I can just. Where's my height floating meeting controls? There we go. All right. So once again, I clear this, and then hold on. I reload the page, and then you see here at the very top we get a hello, right? We get a hello, and it tells you that the source of the hello is from the index.js file on line 1. Right? It even tells you where it is from. So yeah, sometimes you know when debugging it does even and this is not just like limited to JavaScript but like in like most interpreted languages like even like Python, when something goes wrong they'll usually tell you where the error is. So it's not something that you have to go wandering through your code and try to find out where things gone wrong. So yeah, now that we confirm that our script our file is linked properly, we can start adding more functions, right? So let's say I want to do such a thing whereby when I press the button, it gives me an alert like, oh, you got a free cookie. I don't know. That actually sounds very scammy. You know what? Let's go with it. So first I need to write my function, right? So to write my function again, same thing, right? The function give cookie, right? And my cookie function just gives a cookie, right? And just say it just says maybe alerts. It says you got a cookie. I don't know, right? Who doesn't love cookies, right? And then let's not go there. No, let's not go there. Okay. And then so we have this function, right? But without calling this function, this actually has this function is basically just useless, right? I can reload my page. And I don't see anything about getting cookies. Wait, let me hide the. Let me whatever. Let me block. Let me turn off my ad block and then we do this one more time. No, what else is blocking it? Hello. What other? Fiber C plus U block. Nothing else should be blocking it. Okay, you know what? Whatever. I don't care. Yeah, you see, there's nothing here about getting a cookie, right? If I in the console I run get cookie, I can say wait, is it get cookie? I forgot. Give cookie. Sorry, give cookie. Right, I run the give cookie function at the very bottom. Let me. It will show an alert, right? And you'll say, you get a cookie, right? But this is kind of useless, right? I need to type the code manually to run it. So to make some function run, on the press of a button or something like that, you can use this thing called onClick function. So basically, right, in your button, you before you close the opening tag, you press the space again, and this time around you type onClick. Alright? And then you do equals, and then followed by the function name, right? So in this case, it's give cookie, right? So what this does is it says, okay, when this button is pressed, it will call this JavaScript function called give cookie, and if it doesn't exist, it will cry about it in the console, where most people don't see it anyway, so it doesn't matter, right? And so now, if I were to reload the page again, and I press the button, it will say, oh, you got a cookie, yay, I got a cookie, ooh, okay. Yeah, but that's a bit lame, right? You can do a lot more stuff with it. What doesn't work? Do you link your script? Make sure you link your script first. Okay. And then is your function name the same?
JS.
Oh.
I hate it.
Oh, the speaker's on.
Yes, it works. Thank you. Now, time to play a soundtrack.
So, okay, yeah. So, you can do I mean, somebody just mentioned sound effect, right? You can use JavaScript to do a lot of things in the browser, right? Showing alerts or incrementing I mean, if you do Python and stuff, you do I don't know, incrementing counters and stuff to count stuff or whatever. You can do that, right? You can also do a lot of other stuff with it. I was going to go into this thing about getting data, right? Maybe we can just do a quick go through of that. Sorry? Okay. So I know we are almost gonna run out of time, so I'm just gonna end it off kind of maybe on a place where y'all can explore a bit more, and actually will be helpful for y'all in the next for hackathon as well as the next workshop. Okay. I'm going to start by introducing to you all this thing called APIs. I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but yeah, in terms of time constraint, I have to kind of jump through it first. So, all right, let's go to this. So, talking about interacting with the web, right? One of the ways that your web application can interact with other web applications on the net, or just other applications in general, is through this thing called API, an API. In this case, this is something for web, but in general, right, not just for web applications, like even on your desktop itself. Interacting with APIs is how applications can talk to each other and get things done, right? So what is an API? An API is an application programming interface. Basically, if you break this down, right, we start from the word interface. Interface is like a thing that you can talk to, that you can communicate to, right? And then it's basically something that you use to talk to and communicate to in programming your application. Boom. Broken down. Yeah, it's basically a set of protocols and functions. So it's like a bunch of things that say, for example, right, Facebook, right? For example, for you to like a post on Facebook, right? You don't just your phone doesn't just immediately goes in and change the value of the number of likes in Facebook's database. No. What it does is that it actually just sends a request to an API, and then the API says, okay, we know it's you, and we know whose post you're gonna like, and then we say, okay, we'll like the post for you. Something like that. Yeah. I was going to talk about cats as a service. That's an API, but I'm not sure. How many of you here use Reddit? How many of you here don't know what Reddit is? Okay. Okay. So maybe just a quick introduction, right? Reddit is a you could call it a cesspool, but it's basically like a souped up forum of sorts, right? It uses this system called subreddits, so it's like different categories of stuff that people can talk about, right? So sorry, like the kind of database thing that people use, FANDOM, right? I don't use it personally. I know like some sites have whatever fandoms and stuff. Okay, that's not the point. What even is a relatively safe subreddit I can show that probably wouldn't get me? No. Oh, AWW. Okay. I am going to check first, okay? I'm not going to take your word for it.
www is cool, it's like cats and dogs and cute stuff. Why is that not cool? No, I'm any deep down.
Okay, yeah, sure, whatever. Let's do that, okay? 3 W's, right? Okay, I'm locked in, lol. Sure. Anyways, so I guess this is like people posting about whatever makes them go all, right? And this is presented to you in a way that is that is friendly for you to consume media in, right? There's a post, there's a title, there's a video, you can upvote, you can comment, whatever, right? But when you're making an app, this is not the best way to get data, okay? And so how people normally send data between applications is with this thing called JSON, JavaScript Object Notation. There's this thing called JSON, right? JavaScript Object Notation. Basically, it's JavaScript object. And it stores data it stores a lot of arbitrary data, basically anything you want to store. An example will be if you actually on Reddit, if you remove the trailing slash and you type a .json, you get the kind of like programmer friendly, application friendly data that is basically whatever that represents the page that you're looking at, right? It's not nothing, it's all hidden. So I open this data. and then there's children, and the children are all the posts. Right, and this is a JSON. This is basically a JSON object, right? And that's how most applications transmit data. Okay, it's not the only way. People also use things like XML or whatever, right? But the way you can see it is that like JSON is like a very easy way to like pass data through and forth, because there's a lot of like parallels with other programming languages as well. For example, in Python you have dictionaries, and you can very easily convert between a dictionary and a JSON object, and so on and so forth, right? So yeah, a lot of data is sent like this over the web, and unfortunately I don't really have much time to like kind of go through what it's like. But basically you can also, once you get this data, right, you can actually manipulate it. By like maybe let's say I want to get the kind, I can just do whatever the data variable is .kind, and I can get the kind of data, and stuff like that. So and like you can do something. You can script it, and unfortunately I don't really have that much time to go through that. But yeah. So this has been a very basic introduction. I tried to like make sure everybody could catch up, everybody was kind of like interested and stuff. But yeah, if you have more questions, feel free to I don't know, contact me on Discord or whatever. The slides are also there, so in case you want to follow through and do the final project, sure, by all means. But other than that, that's kind of it. Whoa. Why does my onClick appear as a character, plain text? If your onClick appears as a character, put the onClick before the closing of the button tag. So you do, instead of doing button onClick, do button onClick equal function name, and then you close it. Yeah. Don't use the first one. Okay. Yeah, so anyways, if you have any questions, you can contact me on Discord, on LinkedIn, you can email me, whatever. Yeah, and that's about it. 3:30, that's the end of my workshop actually. We have a 15-minute break. So if you need to use the washroom or whatever, I don't know whether there's still snacks. You can go ahead and do so. And then see you back at LT15 at 3:45. I think.
Like go back to your code and then like I can take a photo.
Sure.
Because I missed the part about the button.
I can just share the.
You can just share.
Can you all take out the extension cord near your?
Okay, and in case anybody wants the hideous attempt at code, I have also shared my project as a link in Discord. You can look at the code if you want to figure it out yourself. You can also ask me more questions if you are interested to know more. Right? Okay. Yeah. So that's all. Thank you so much. Yeah, leave the breakout room. For the people online, leave the breakout room. And then just join back the main room. Yeah.
He would like to know more about you. He wants to know more about you.
Sure.
He said sure. Yeah. Don't lie.
Let them know.
You mean you have a call back? He's lying. Okay, fine. Why you give him? I thought only you can use it, not him. I don't let Funny use my phone.
Alright, let me end the